So I guess we'll just welcome people. I know people are going to probably be coming in and out a little bit, but we want to just welcome everybody. So I've had the pleasure of knowing Bill for about a decade, right, Bill? On that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually met Bill for the first time kind of through somebody else. He was the editor of Busted Halo, a culture and religion publication and website. And for those of you who might remember, when the Mount Carmel group of high schoolers traveled to World Youth Day in Spain, we were sort of embedded with a reporter from Busted Halo, and I kind of sort of knew of Bill. And I fell upon the Freshman Survival Guide, and if you were in my youth group for some time, we gave them out as gifts. And this is before I got a chance to know him. And when I got a chance to know him, working with the Carmelites and again here at the parish, and he's been how many years have you been here with us, Bill?
Probably. When did Father Leonard pass away? 5 years ago?
5 years ago, so maybe 5 or 6 years.
A little bit over 5 years, 5 or 6, 5.5, 6 years ago, yeah.
So Bill's been consulting with us, and he's been a real thought partner in all the sort of things that we've been doing here as a parish, and really has been just a driving force to me personally and to our team in doing some of the things. But one of the things that I love about Bill is his insight. Is he always seems to have the pulse on what's happening, and I think the reason why that is because he's a really fantastic listener, and I think it stems from his general interest. He's one of the most interesting and interested people I know, and I'm sure that was his approach to the book. And there is no need to purchase the book, but if you have a copy or if you've seen it, you know that it's immediately, this is not Bill's experience about or sort of his thoughts. He immediately starts listening to students, and that's what's really great. And we want tonight to be real practical advice and to ask questions of Bill and his experiences of talking and working with students in this absolutely unprecedented year. A little bit about Bill. So along with the editing of Busted Halo as its editor in chief, he's obviously as a consultant in many different. You can maybe talk a little bit about that. Many different clients, but he's definitely been a part of just a conversation between faith and culture. And all of its cross sections, and it's really just been a fantastic thing. He's also a wonderful musician and an artist, and he has some really great short films I would encourage people to check out as well. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about that at the end. But without further ado, it's a little strange because this is my first sort of Zoom presentation with an author. But Bill, hello, welcome, and how are you?
Good, thanks for having me, guys. Very good, thanks. And I really, as I said to everybody, I mean, I guess we got a bigger crowd than we thought, which is really wonderful. It's like 14 right now. And I think some more folks say they're coming. So I really hope to be able to give a little bit of an introduction into the book, The Freshman Survival Guide. If by show of hands, a lot of people aren't doing a video, but if for those who do, who has, I know Penelope has the book. Adam, have you seen the book or not really?
Nope, not at all.
Okay, great. Laura, I know the Migliettas have it. And some other folks might. There you go. Yeah, Penelope's going to hold the book up. That's her. There you go. Thanks. And my mom has the book too. She's not going to tell you that. She's, Mom, can you hear me? Can you wave if you hear me? Okay. Mom lived through the book. So I really just want to give folks a little bit of background on the book, where it came from, what it is. And then I really hope we can have a little bit of a conversation. We can talk about, obviously there's a lot of parents on board, which is totally the way it is usually. Parents are often more concerned about this transition than at least their students or their seniors who have just graduated let on. And so it's completely normal for us to have a big group of folks who are parents or guardians or whatever who are trying to help out their soon-to-be matriculating college student. So great to be with you all. I want to give you a little bit of a PowerPoint, and then I hope we can have a conversation. Really do. You can ask questions. We're going to have a talk, and I'll give you a little bit. So I'm going to share the screen now if I can. And let's see. I'm going to put it up on a PowerPoint. Elliot, can you stay unmuted if you can? If there's an issue with anything, please let me know. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, folks. So this Freshman Survival Guide is the book we're talking about. It's been out about 9 years now. Okay. It came, we sold about 150,000 copies. It's done well. It was on the David Letterman show back when he was on the air. It's gotten a lot of great attention. We're really proud of it. It's #1 on Amazon as a college guide, and it's done really well this year as well. So it's every year, sort of perennial, and we keep it updated with the website. And then a few years ago, four years ago, we did a full update and review of the whole book. And so that's sort of what we generally try to do to keep it as relevant as possible. So the Freshman Survival Guide is meant to be, as it says in the subhead, soulful advice for studying, socializing, and everything in between. Pardon me. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a second. But in short, it's a holistic guide. It's not about how to get into college because you've already been in. It's about how to make what is really a tremendously big transition, probably the biggest transition most students have ever gone through. So now this year is, of course, as Elliot mentioned, incredibly unique because we've got a big asterisk on this year, the coronavirus, COVID-19. I was just telling Adam, who's graduating from St. Joe's Regional, heading on to Seton Hall before we started, that I've been telling students that I've talked to that they won't, I honestly don't really remember a ton about my graduation. It was nice and it was good, but it wasn't exceptionally interesting in a certain ways. Whereas I think people who are graduating this year will never, ever forget this year, nor will any of us. We hope we don't relive it, but it's obviously a very, very unique time. And the question at the bottom is, are all bets off just because we're in the middle of this pandemic? The answer is, we don't know. I mean, I don't think all bets are off, because we're going to still have college. We don't know. A lot of schools are right now deciding whether to go back. Notre Dame just decided to go back in early August, and they're going to do a whole truncated semester, et cetera, just to sort of limit travel and to limit potential for infection, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of schools are trying to follow that lead. Obviously, I think it's safe to say that every college administrator I talk to, they really want to go back to school, okay, because they really want to have kids on campus for lots of reasons. That's what they're there for. That's what these colleges do. They love having football. They love having fall. They love having students on campus. It's the lifeblood for the university, for most universities, for all universities, really. So what I don't think will change is that regardless of whether students are going to be on campus starting in late August or not right now, that making the transition to college is a huge transition. It's a lot different for many students. They're going to be going away. A big percentage of students go away or go live away for college. And so it's an enormous transition. And that really is what this book is about, how to make this transition without crashing and burning. And I want to give you a little bit of a background about in the beginning, where the whole idea for the book came from. Elliot mentioned that this isn't just my memoir about how I went to college, or my co-author, Nora Bradbury Hale, how she went to college. It's not that at all. The book came from, as you mentioned, I was the editor-in-chief of an online magazine called Busted Halo, which was owned by a Catholic organization, the Paulist Fathers. And I did it for about 7 years. I was the editor-in-chief there. And then we were talking to spiritual seekers, folks who were interested in faith and spirituality and culture. And one summer, I was talking to my contributing editors who were all strewn around the country. So we were on a telephone call. And I said, I need some ideas for, back to school in August and September for story ideas. What should we do? And this contributing editor in Rochester, Nora, said, well, she's been a youth minister for about 20 years at that point. Youth minister for people your age, about 16, 17, 18, up in Rochester. And she said every summer for a while now, for years I sent students off to college after youth ministry in the parish, in the school. And I would send them off to college, and a certain percentage of them would crash and burn. And so what I decided to do a number of years ago was, in the summertime right about now, or July perhaps, to sit down, to get all the students about to head off to college, to sit in a room with all of the past graduates who've gone to college and survived, and come back and sit in a room and have them ask any question they want, right? Anything they want to ask about what college is like, from students who are already there or have just gone through it or just got out. And she said, I'll get out of the room and I'll let people talk about everything as honestly as they possibly can and ask the questions they really want to know about and not worrying about me being there. And I said, that's great. Why don't we do a bullet point list, 10 lists, and we'll call it the Freshman Survival Guide. And that's what we did for the first year. I think it was about 2005. We did the first year, and we just literally gave people a PDF they could download and put on their dorm room wall, or to just hand out if they're different, freshman orientation staffs to students, what to do. And that really started exploding. We had tens of thousands of downloads of that. And then we had, the next year we started expanding it every year online. We would get bigger and bigger, do more things, do more interviews with different people, professors, administrators, residence life people, campus ministry, everything. So it grew really big. And that's when it got big enough that we got a major book agent and book publishers, some major publishers interested in the book. And that's what we did. We sold it as a book. And so really what the book is, it was meant to be really practical advice. Like a Swiss Army knife, you've got lots of uses. So not everybody's going to need the book for the same thing all the time. Because we try to cover a lot of territory, and it is a lot of territory. It's about 400 pages right now. It started out as 320, I think, and with the addition, we really built it up. So we don't pretend that people are going to read the book, sort of cover to cover, like a novel. Obviously, we think of it as more of a reference book with a lot of different topics that you're going to come across. Some students might be concerned about, others won't have an issue with. And I'll get into that more in a moment. So it's really meant to be a really practical guide, but also values-based in the sense that we're talking about what people value and what they want out of life, et cetera. Hey, everybody. So we are just going to mute the Miglietta's there. Sorry about that. So it's a practical tool. For many colleges, here's sort of the thinking behind the book when we started writing it. For many colleges, the first real opportunity to be away from home, to be in hopefully a slightly more diverse population of people, to be away from home for many of them, and to ask big questions. I'll ask lots of questions, big and small. Obviously, you're going to be at collegiate level courses, so you're going to have PhD professors who spent their whole lives working on whatever topic that they are teaching. And so they're scholars, presumably in the area they're teaching, and they're going to have lots of ways to make you think about things. There's also going to be bigger questions you're going to be talking about in the dorm rooms or at the cafeteria after class or between classes about what you want out of life, what you're going to do. These are kind of the classic sort of things that college students do. They're sort of searching and trying to find what they want their life to be about. So it's a real opportunity, really, in a beautiful way to ask questions, both big and small, but it's also, unfortunately, the first opportunity for a lot of students to crash and burn in both big and small ways. Okay, and I don't say that to sort of fill anybody with fear or terror about college. The truth is, millions of people go there every year, and they do fine, and they graduate, and they do fine, and everything's fine. But the truth is, it also is, for many people, the first time with some modicum of independence. And it can be potentially an issue for some, okay? And so a lot of what we talk about is how it is an issue and sort of a pitfall. So we wanted the book to be as real. Ellen, can you maybe move some folks if you want to mute as people go on? So we wanted the book to be as realistic as possible about life on campus, about all issues from good study habits to sex, to drugs and dating and alcohol. So that's a good example of why I'm many years out of college now, why it was not meant to be in any way, shape, or form my experience of college at all. And so we wanted the book to be holistic, the whole student, mind, body, and spirit. As I mentioned, the idea for the book and the first sort of things we did with the book came out of our work through Busted Halo, and which was owned by a Catholic organization. So we were talking about spirituality all the time. And I really wanted the book to be about everything. There's lots of college guides out there, and a lot of them talk about they want to treat students as if they're a big boiling pot of hormones and brain. So they're both urges and brain, and everything's growing. And a lot of these college guides seem to want to say, let's make sure we let the brain grow and keep the hormones as tame as possible so they don't get into trouble, that kind of thing. That's fine. That's what a lot of our competition does. What we really do is talk about those very same issues, but also talk about bigger questions about meaning and purpose. So the book really, when we finally published it, was really filled with 5 years of research, interviews, and surveys, and it brought together the advice and experiences of hundreds, now it's probably thousands of students, professors, administrators, counselors on staff, campus ministers, and other professionals, a lot of res life people, et cetera, people that we don't think about it, but actually working at college, beyond just being a professor and being student life professionals, is an enormous profession. I mean, there's thousands and thousands of people doing it. And these are people that have professional associations, and they talk about these things all the time. So we want to bring all those things together and also to get as relevant and as timely as possible. So you talk to students as they're there on campus, and the ones that just graduated, the ones who've been through it, and the ones that they're seeing. So the book changes in the sense that we're always looking to have sort of folks give their updated information on what's happening on campus. I'll give you an example in a second if you remind me about dieting and that sort of thing. That came up when we did the last revision a couple of years ago. So there's really 5 basic areas, we call them BRIAR, that we really talk about in the book. Balance, relationships, identity, academics, and risk. Now, everybody thinks college is, obviously academics is a huge part of college. But the fact of the matter is, we talked about, really college is an experience that you remember probably because you're growing in lots of ways, not just simply in sort of your learning and your knowledge. Your relationships are going to grow. Your circle of friends is most likely going to grow. The sort of people you meet and the experiences you have, it should hopefully grow. Your sense of your identity should hopefully grow and change in the sense of as you're discovering more about the world and more about people and more about the subjects you're interested in. Your ability to take risks is going to be obviously there because your parents, for many of you who live away, aren't going to be there. And so you're going to have lots of potential people, potential opportunities to do things that might be stupid or might be smart, depending on how you look at it. And then the need for balance, which is, you'll hear that a lot in life, and we still hear that as adults. But the truth is, it is something we talk about a lot, is trying to find balance, which is hard. It's hard anytime in life, but it's especially hard sometimes when you're 18 and 19 years old. Okay, so in the book, and I'm going to push through when I'm sharing my screen here in a second to the Kindle version of the book to just show you a little bit of it. It's one of the upsides of being on Zoom. I can just go electronically and show you everything. So in balance, we actually break down, where the chapters are on things that really could talk about dealing with time management. Huge issue, by the way. Time management is a huge issue. It's a huge issue for people in life in general. For college students, it is enormous. Procrastination, which is another form of time management. Mind, body, spirit, health, which is everything. Diet, emotional. Choosing activities, extracurriculars, etc. Relationships, that doesn't just mean boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. It means friendships, it means parents, it means homesickness, maintaining old friendships, finding new ones, creating new ones will help you grow. We have chapters devoted to that. Identity, setting goals, decision-making, habits you make, who you want to be, who you are, what values you hold, etc. Academics, obviously, we think the reason you're there is to learn in a classroom is your main thing. Learning how to be a college student, creating a study budget, dealing with professors, et cetera, which seems like it would be obvious, but trust me, it isn't always very obvious. So we have a ton of chapters on that. And then risk, which is really underpins a lot of the book. It's not to scare people at all, but it's to just say that you're going to have choices to make here. And you can take risks. And there are smart risks and dumb risks. And hopefully some of the advice we're given from people who've already been there and done that can give you some good advice to not make the same mistakes others have. So there's positive risk-taking, stepping outside our comfort zone. There's negative risk-taking, drugs, alcohol, sex, criminal behavior. We know statistically, and parents, for those of you who might be afraid that we're sitting there trying to talk about these things as if we're promoting them, we just go to statistics, government statistics about all these things, and we know that students have already probably encountered much of this stuff, but they're certainly going to encounter it in college in terms of all the things that are things that you might want your kids to stay away from, these dangerous things. They're going to encounter them. So we'd rather people understand that we know that, we understand that, and there's ways to deal with these things. Anyway, so that said, it gives you just some overview of what's in the book, which is really like our initial Swiss Army knife has really turned into a bit of this. So like, as I said, it's really intended to be what you need it for. And my hope, in the very beginning, I told the publisher, I really want we know that people that buy our book are generally schools, high schools for graduates, or a lot of high schools are starting to have it, use the book as a seminar in senior year of high school to help students as they're beginning to focus forward on their college life. And also tons of freshman orientation staffs buy it, and they use it as a curriculum for the first semester of freshman year for people in the first year orientation. But we also know when individual buyers are often parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, mentors, counselors, etc. So we know that the book is bought. Most 18-year-olds aren't walking out and buying the book. In fact, Penelope and Roseanne, they had bought the book, and that is completely normal that parents buy it. My thing about the book is I want to make sure that it's in a voice that makes students not embarrassed to have it in their. The book that I want them to have embarrassed to have in their book bag or embarrassed to have on their desk. And they probably will grudgingly look at it when they start having issues with their roommate or time management or eating or homesickness or any number of things. So that's really the idea, is a book of reference that you can go literally flip through, and we give you guides along the way for how to use the book, almost like a legend to how the book. And every chapter within the book is broken up into different places, right? So every chapter has got these icons, which the coffee icon, which kind of mimics the front of the book, is really the survival strategies. It's the first one, sort of a beginning idea of what that chapter will be about. There's also the Seek Find, which is this. Seek Find is this icon, which is really a lot about spiritual seeking, and we talk to campus ministers across the religious spectrum. So whether the chapter is on homework and academics, or it's on dealing with professors, or it's dealing with homesickness, or it's dealing with drugs and alcohol, we have a different campus minister speaking to that issue. One campus minister usually in every chapter speaking about that issue. And so the first chapter is the Buddhist minister from Syracuse. The second chapter is the Hillel rabbi. Third chapter is the Catholic campus minister from Ohio State University. The fascinating thing about writing the book for me when I was doing all those interviews with religious leaders is how much they harmonized on all these issues. They deal with students all the time, and most of them have made a career and a vocation of dealing with college students on campus. And they have tremendous concern for the lives of students, and they know what they're talking about. They see these issues all the time. So their wisdom is sort of another sort of little differentiator that we have in our book that most other books don't have. Then you have the survival story, which is usually either a direct student or a composite story of, sort of some crashing and burning on campus that's happened from people we've talked to. And then we also have student quotes throughout, and then we have this online thing that is essentially, the book is interactive in the sense that we want people to go online to our website where we update with the blog, and we have what we call the interactive RA, which is a resident assistant, resident assistants that we deal with, that if you have a question, you don't feel like going to your own resident assistant, you can email us and we can give you advice, which usually involves some very broad advice, and then if there's something specific that really needs attention, we tell them to go get real help. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what that is. And I will then, if we can, go back to, well, I'm going to give you these questions. For the college-bound people through Our Lady of Mount Carmel, so I know a lot of you aren't from that, and a lot of you are parents. What are you doing to prepare your graduating students for college? These are questions that I'd love you to just think about, we can talk about. What issues are the biggest for those students? And for the students who are on the call, I'd love to talk to them about that. And what resources are available or could you have access to in terms of making this transition? And do you have models in your life, people that you've seen that can do this, that have done this, and you can look to and say, well, so-and-so recently went through this or is going through this. I'd love to talk to them. So if you can think about that just for a second, I'm going to just real quick bump over to my Kindle version of the book and show you what I was talking about before, which is a user guide, a how-to and who is using the Freshman Survival Guide. And as we said, it's meant to be a very versatile tool. And so literally we have it broken up into sections. This is the first very thing in the book. How to use a Freshman Survival Guide if you're a high school junior or senior. And then we talk to the issues that a lot of juniors and seniors in high school are dealing with links out, at least in the Kindle book, to where they should be maybe be looking for issues that they might have problems with or might be interested in. College freshmen, it's a little bit different. We really actually ideally would like the student to get the book before now or now and look at it over the summer before they hit the ground running on campus, because the truth is there's so much coming at them that it's hard for them to focus. So it's good to have some sort of a knowledge of what's this book about, so when they need to refer back to it when they're in the midst of something, they can. with that said, a lot of college freshmen use the book and curriculum, and hopefully, I know they get a lot out of it. But it's definitely where a lot of use happens right now. And then commuter students, which is a little bit different. They have different issues sometimes. We also do stuff for first-generation students, which is a different population in the sense of that they're the first in their family to experience college. So we really want to talk to those experiences directly, because sometimes they can be challenging for commuters or first-generation students to really feel like they can enter into the fullness of college life, which isn't simply just going to class. And so we try to address that, and there are chapters in there that we ask folks to take a look at. And then, of course, parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, and other relatives, which is where a lot of folks go, we think, to look at what they're seeing, what they're concerned about as they're sending this young son or daughter, niece or nephew, grandson or granddaughter off to college. And we talk with them about emergencies, et cetera. Then we give some real good advice to high school educators, teachers, counselors, et cetera. And I can go through a little bit more. We ask them to go through a little bit of an exercise with students, which is 4 points that I can go into in a minute. But I'd love to pause this now and get back to the main screen here. So load everybody. Hi, Kim. Good to see you. Some new people on here. Good to be here. Nick's iPhone and Sarah McChesney. Anyway, love to see if there's any questions now. Bring you guys into it. Questions, criticisms, anything, please.
Feel free to unmute yourselves if you'd like to.
I can't seem to unmute anybody, dude.
Let me see. Sorry. If anybody else has questions, I'm just asking to unmute. Feel free to unmute yourselves. You should be able to, right? Let me see. Yeah. And if you have any questions for Bill about the book or about your own experiences, your own thoughts, we'd love to make this a discussion as much as possible in the time that we have, and we definitely want to respect your time. But we have this wonderful resource. So first of all, thank you for joining us. And again, go ahead. I think Ms. Capers, you have a question?
Yeah. Yes. From your feedback from the kids, what part of the book did they find to be the most helpful, if there is a particular part?
That's a great question. You hear different things. And to be honest, Kim, you have a student about to head off?
Yes.
Where are they going?
He's going to Elon in North Carolina.
Very popular school now, right? Yeah, I will say every student's kind of different, okay? And they don't, and as you know, a lot of 18, 19-year-olds are not the most forthcoming about what they need sometimes. So I don't entirely know. And I think women are different than men in terms of young women, in terms of what they're going to reveal about that. I will say that stuff that we think we get a decent amount of feedback on is homesickness, which is something that many are embarrassed by, but almost anybody that's on a college campus we've spoken to says about 4 to 6 weeks in, you're going to get kids who are going to start getting a little funky, because they don't know how to admit it because they're embarrassed to potentially, but they're homesick. So that's one. I think time management's a big one for a lot of them.
Sure.
And I think it's a big one for everybody in life, right? I think roommate issues are a big one too, because some of them might have had their own room for their entire lives, and now they're in a much smaller space than they've ever been in before, sharing a room. And so there's a lot of stuff that really we give strategies around that, about how to deal with stuff. Which is really part of the experience, right? Is learning how to be in a relationship and live with people.
Exactly.
Work with people. So I would say those are the three that come to mind the first. I will say, if you read the book, and maybe Penelope and the Mingley Letters have gotten a chance to look at it a little bit, they'll see, we make a big deal out of one thing, going to class, because we know statistically for a fact that the single greatest, they say the single greatest predictor, sociologists will say for income is if you have a college degree or not. They say if you tell me you have a college degree, we would almost say that you're going to have X amount of earning power in your life. The single greatest predictor on the college level that we've found, and statistics have told us, is that people missing classes is why they drop out, why they crash and burn. The reasons why they miss are varied, right? I broke up with my girlfriend. I stopped going to class. I got depressed. I stopped going to class. I started playing video games and I thought I was fine. I stopped going to class. Missing class, not going to class is really where the trouble happens. So one of the things we really are adamant about, in fact, we kind of have 2 chapters on the same thing in some ways that say go to class. Look, you had a late night, you were being stupid, get up and go to class. You're paying, and we actually have a calculator in there. We do it online to say how much you're paying for that credit hour. And is that, you need to get there. So it's that sort of stuff. So those are sort of the things off the top of my head. But the truth be told, it's really everything. It's across the board. I think I tell students all the time, office hours. Go to office hours.
Right.
Professors will tell you that all the time. Think about it. These are people, if you're a historian, you spent the bulk of your professional life studying 19th century manufacturing in England, maybe, right? You're obsessed with that. You might not, but that person has spent their life on those issues. That might not be your biggest thing, but going to an office hour for this professor, letting them see the whites of your eyes and get to know you a little bit. Every teacher I've talked to will almost always say, push comes to shove, it's B to B plus. That kid's in my classroom and he or she shows up and or participates. That's an edge. These are people that are obsessed with their subject matter. You don't have to fake interest, but showing interest is a good thing, and so that's another kind of little tidbit. Office hours are a big one.
Thank you.
And sure, no, please keep asking questions. I love this stuff, and it's good to get feedback from what you're coming across with your soon-to-be, jettisoning child.
Yes.
How are you feeling about it, Kim? You feeling prepared as a parent?
I believe so. I know, because I can acknowledge how much of a void there will be in our home when he's not here. I do have another child, but when there's just 4 of us and then one is gone, it's a big deal. So I'm getting myself ready so that I'm not like a complete breakdown.
Which is a big deal too. It's a big deal. Yeah.
Right. So we tease back and forth about who's going to miss who and stuff, but I'm preparing. So I'm doing things like this. Like I will get your book. Good. I am for his school. They have a required reading for all first years. Okay. So we're actually doing that all together to make sure he's on top of it. So great. Hopefully, we'll see.
What book are they reading?
They're reading Biased.
Biased?
Yes. Okay. It's about implicit bias and all, and actually with everything going on, it's probably the perfect book.
Perfect book. Yeah, I was going to say that's really good.
The author will be on campus and we'll do a presentation and all that kind of stuff. And then I think they kind of try to thread it through all of the first year, their core curriculum classes.
Okay. That's great.
So yeah. It seems interesting. They didn't do that when I was in college, so interesting.
For what it's worth, Kim and everybody, in the chat, I just put my email, billmcgarvey@gmail.com. Please feel free to take it. I trust nobody's going to abuse it. They're just going to, if you have questions, feel free to ask. I'm happy to ask. And honestly, truth be told, I tell everybody this, we are interested in hearing back from people, especially students, but also parents, about what they're coming across. Because the truth is, this is a dynamic field, and it's changing all the time, and we want to hear what people are experiencing. So please don't hesitate. But I want you to let you know that, first of all, most of the people on this call are parents right now. So
right.
They're coming through the same thing. And I think it's good to be able to recognize that. And it's hard to say this little son or daughter of mine that I gave birth to and shepherded through all these years is now leaving home. The truth is they're not really ready for the big bad world yet, and they still need you a lot.
Clearly.
But it is a time to sort of probably cut some time or let them fly. The first line in our book is there are options. And that came from a student at the University of Iowa late one night. There are options. It came from one of the surveys we did. A friend of mine's a professor. She's now at Wisconsin, but she was at the University of Iowa. She did all these big lecture classes. She gave out our surveys. And this one woman who's a junior or senior at Iowa said, there are options. And I just thought that was the perfect thing. The book is really about, there are tons of options. You can literally not go to class. A lot of teachers won't ever care. They won't say anything. Your RA is not going to knock on your door. You can waste all the money you save, and they don't care. There's not a mom or dad knocking on your door saying get up. You have a chance. You have choices here, and we want to help you make good choices because that's what being an adult is really about. So anyway, So that's really what we want folks to do. And that means parents have to sometimes take a step back and say, okay, hopefully they'll make some good choices, you know.
Bill, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
I was just saying,
Hi. Quick question for you. In just to take your last comment a step further, what can we do as parents to facilitate the homesickness? Like, what's too much? What's too little? What's what's the advice that you have for us?
Yeah, we talk about in the book, don't come home for the first, I think it's 4 weeks. I can look it up right now, but we basically say to students, try not to, you can't see this, I'm going to share it. Let me share real quick. Let me share the screen again. Desktop. And share Kindle. So, homesickness. Sorry. But look, the first thing is really honestly is don't try not to come home, you know, right? So see chapter 5. So it's about developing habits and relationships. So this is chapter 5. I miss my old life. It was familiar, and that's a big part of it, right? The UCLA, this is a great institute. We do a lot of research on, take a lot of research from UCLA's Higher Education Research Institute, which every year does a survey of thousands of freshmen. 66 or 7, almost 70% of college students, freshmen, admit feeling homesick. So I think it's staying busy. It's also trying to resist the urge to go home, trying to resist the urge to like fall back on your old ways in terms of your old friends. The idea is really to try, if you can, for a month, right? Spend 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. A lot of people put it at the Columbus Day weekend, which might be the first sort of holiday weekend. Maybe then you can go home. And that's when I first went home. But the truth is, when I was in college, I'm dating myself, we didn't have cell phones. So you called home once a week because it was expensive to call, right? But kids now are texting and calling their parents and vice versa all the time. So they're in touch in ways that we never were. But I think it's important to try to have a little bit of distance and really try to swim on your own. If that's your plan.
Bill, if I could just add to that, if you don't mind, if I could just piggyback off of that a little bit. But Adam, when we were talking, when you just signed on, I said, Adam's going to Seton Hall, which is, my alma mater. I loved it because it felt super far and it felt super close when I needed it. But definitely, I couldn't agree more with Bill. Is giving that first month or so to say, you know what, this is my own experience. And Kim, thank you for bringing up the parent experience, because one of the things I struggled with early on is the fact that, my relationship had changed. I wasn't aware of the things our mom was going through, not having both of us. I'm a minute, there was one older than me, not having us in the household. And so I wasn't just, having that discussion and being treated differently. I can't, to know sort of, this was Genevieve, to know the sort of the boundaries, what helped was being away. So then the relationship changes. It wasn't like, oh, I need mom to talk to my professor, or I need, I want to talk to dad about this. It's like, I'll have to figure this out. And it's always great to have a safety net, but it was always just to sort of like, the relationship grows and changes when it's because what happens is this, and I saw this with friends, they went back home often, they would just get right back into that old self, whether that was with friends at home or that relationship where they become a young child again. You know what I mean? Because to the parent, they're always 2 years old, right? As they should be. So sorry, but that's such a relevant memory in my mind.
It's a big one, and I know I was embarrassed to ever admit I was homesick. So I mean, I'm glad we talk about it in our book, because I don't know, it's just, but it's very true, and it happens. And I think Kim makes a good point. I think parents are being honest about that too now in ways that maybe we weren't aware of either. I mean, of course they miss their kid, but yeah. So anyway, there's a joke in the book. It's basically senior year. One parent told us senior year exists so that parents don't miss their kids when they go away to college, because senior year can be such a stressful time for them. So it's a joke, but it's obviously a complicated time.
Is there anyone else thoughts?
Just
If
to let
not-
you know that Penelope had to sign off because she was having technical difficulties, so she apologizes.
Oh, okay. I can, if you want, I can show you a little bit of I don't know if you guys are interested in this, but there's a little exercise in the book I can talk to you about real quick if you want. It basically is what we advise folks to do before the kids head off to school. Is that all right? Or any more questions? Feel free to jump in. Okay. So that's on the book. It's very early on in the book. Let's see. So, basically, we try to tell folks, can you see the screen now, guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that was high school. This is college, right? A lot of what we're doing is sort of 4 questions before we ask people to go through this with their parents if they want or they can. But also, we have to, if it's not a great relationship or there's not a real receptivity to that, we ask the students and the parents to go through it themselves, or with the students, at least with a mentor potentially, right? And it's a good little research thing to do, a good conversation to have openly and honestly as best parent and student can. And the first question is 4 questions. What do you hope happens to you and for you in college? And we want the parent and the student to go beyond the obvious. Oh, I want to get a good education, et cetera. But it's about how that person at age 18 or whatever age they are right now hopes to grow in the next 4 years. And also what the parent or guardian or mentor really hopes to see from them as well. So to set some goals out there, to have a conversation about that. And the broader questions are really more than just getting a degree. It's like, what kind of a person do you want to become? What do you hope the college experience will help you become in terms of greater self-understanding, broader experience of people, cultures, or beliefs? Certainly, as Kim was mentioning, going through what we are now is certainly a moment to be talking about understanding and communications between people. So that's a great sort of first question to have. And then a really tough question is question 2 is, what are you most afraid of? So we want students to name their fears, want parents to name their fears as well. It can be hard, right? Because people don't want to admit their fears. But to understand and to be really, to be as honest as possible about what your fears are moving forward, and to have a real good sense of what they are. And the parents as well. There's a great line here. One father discussed this with his son, and the question was, why don't you trust me? And the father's honest answer is, it's not that I don't trust you, it's I'm afraid I haven't properly prepared you to face the world, and there are consequences to that. And the truth is, we know that. We sadly see stories every year, and I don't mean to inspire people with fear. We see stories every year of people getting in trouble doing stupid things or getting caught up in bad things. So these are real decisions, and these are real young adult moments. These are real, you're an adult now, really, in everybody, in the law's eyes at least. The third question is, what are your biggest weaknesses and strengths? And that's a tough one, right? Sometimes we know our own Achilles heel, but we don't often want to talk about them. But if a kid is really struggling with time, and time management, which is a big one for a lot of people, we talk about that. And you ask them to talk about that and name it. And to really visit that, honestly, and what lessons need to be learned from that and how they can strategize moving forward. If you're bad at staying, kids being on video games all day and they can't get their stuff straight, we have to have a strategy to get off, shut it down, and then start doing work. Those sorts of things. So you need to talk about what's really necessary to help the gifts and the talents that need to happen to bring to really enhance your strengths and to help you avoid your weaknesses, your weakest moments. And then a really big one is the question 4: who are you going to call with big questions and big life problems? And we tell parents, don't be offended if you're not the person they choose, okay? Because you might not be. Or there might be an uncle or a grandparent or a colleague or a high school mentor, coach, or something that they want to do. But we want to make sure that this person has somebody that they say, I will call so-and-so, either mom and dad, or maybe it's a bigger sister or brother, to let them know. And then tell them the parents need to know that if they're not on that list of the people that are going to be called with big questions or problems, that they also can be in touch with that mentor. That mentor knows that there could be a link there if they needed to, okay, if there really is an emergency. So those are 4 really basic kind of questions that we ask folks.
They're very good questions.
What's that?
They're very good questions.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. that's in the and then it goes into 6 bad habits in high school and what they look like in college, which you can see in the book too. But I know it's 7:55. I don't want to get too late, keep people here too long. But those are 4 things we ask people to maybe try to do. Just have an honest conversation. I know it's tough for parents. I know it's tough for students, but it's important to do. To just maybe try to start establishing some sort of a rapport that's maybe a little more adult and what the expectations are, and on both sides, maybe, if possible. Not easy. We don't say it's easy, but it's possible.
So one last question. Certainly besides reading your book, what other suggestions do you have for the summer prior to college?
I enjoy yourself and spend time with your friends, and then don't think in terms of all or nothing. Don't think things in terms of I'll see you later. It's not goodbye forever. I'll see you later. My life isn't changed. Like we tell people early on in the book, a couple things about friendships. I don't know if people remember when I went off to college. I remember the first week of college, I was friends with these 5 guys on another floor in my dorm. Really nice guys, and we spent all the time together. And I literally barely saw them after that first week because I made other friends, right? The point being that, you spent 18 years up to this point making good friends. Hopefully you have some good friends and good relationships back home, right? Don't go expecting in a week you're not going to make, or a month, you're not going to make a best friend. Okay, you already know what a best friend looks like. Give it time. That person you're making friends with could be an axe murderer. Okay, I'm joking, but they probably aren't. Or they could be a psychopath who's going to tell all your secrets, right? So just be generous, be generous with your friendship, but stingy with your trust early on. Be careful, right? That's one big thing. So, but we like people to sort of see you've already had 18 years of living. You're not an expert in anything. We're all learning all the time. But, you have good friends and good relationships and enjoy them this summer. And in terms of reading the book, look at the book and try to have these tough conversations with yourself about what you're thinking, what you think your biggest challenges are going to be. Because sometimes our worst selves can come out because there are no reins on it. There are no reins on us after a while. And we get to really, we know that students literally end up sitting there, some students, not a lot, some, just obsessed, with their video games or laying in bed depressed. And that's a big one. There's a lot of help on campus. You're basically paying these big tuitions and you have the equivalent of a spa on campus. You've got food, you've got a trainer, you've got a gym, you've got health services, you've got counselors, and you've got tutors. These are all paid for. Use them. And fortunately, kids are way better than they used to be at getting help, because a lot of them are already getting help therapeutically about emotional things, and that's better and better. But we need to make sure that people, because a lot of folks don't know that they have needs or struggles with depression or anxiety until they get to college. And we want them to know that that help is there and they're not crazy, and that they should reach out for help. That's a big one for us, is that there are options there, and there also is help.
Bill, I have a question. Is there parts of this book that can relate to the times we're experiencing right now? I'm sure this book wasn't written thinking about we're going to go through some sort of COVID pandemic, and now kids are dealing with, some are going to school but have to deal with some of the stress factors of, social distancing. Some kids are going to be doing their classes part-time online. So there's a lot of different things. This is not the normal transition from high school to college. Is there things in this book that we can use to relate to some of those things, and maybe we can somehow prepare?
We don't have a big online, we know there's online learning, and we do talk to folks about, there is a part of the chapter on alternative ways of learning. It will probably be more robust if we do an update to the book, but at the moment there's not a ton on that. And the truth is, as I said, you weren't here for the first slide, I don't think, Martin, but it was basically, there's a big asterisk this summer, okay, about the book, because we don't know what's going to happen, because universities don't know what's going to happen. They're still trying to figure it out. As I said at the beginning, universities need students on campus because they need that tuition and they need that room and board and honestly the life of the campus, and that's really what you're paying for, the experience, right, of college. So if it becomes a situation where people are at home for the first semester or half the semester or whatever it might be, I think then it becomes a lot about at home about how do you deal with parent and student, and how do you deal with those relationships as a student wishes they were away if they were going to go away and can't be away. And so I think there's going to be a lot of that kind of conversation. And in terms of, I thought you meant maybe talking about certainly in terms of some of the political and unrest in the country, and certainly issues dealing with race and whatnot. We talk about that in the book Diversity a lot, and that for a lot of students, they might be coming from a very different background. They're going to a place. We have students from the inner city, from African American, from minority backgrounds, going to the University of Oklahoma, where they're one of a very small minority of people. How do you deal with that? And then the opposite is true as well. Literally, white kids from the suburbs are going to schools in the city where it's incredibly diverse. How do you deal with that? And there's no one answer for that, but there are ways to approach and be in these moments that you hope, especially in college. And people talk about it. This is a time when you should be able to think and question big time, and make friends and also decide who you are, what you think, and what you want, and find experiences. So if that, in that sense, but in terms of the online component, I think we're going to have a lot of family therapy going on, because I think online is hard, and I've talked to so many teachers, nobody likes online. I mean, some people do like, I should say, but nobody's you're not paying a big college tuition so you can go online. Let's face it, right? You're not, that's not what they're doing. And colleges are desperately aware of that. I had one administrator say, look, we're not Harvard, they said, but we're a good school, we're a good solid school, but people pay to come for the experience on campus, which also means going to a basketball game. We have the Division I basketball team, joining a club, that's what you join for. And we know that. So colleges are going to work really hard to get back to normal as best they can, but we're learning a lot too. So but I really think if in this moment, being prepared for anything, being agile, which the book kind of talks about, is like, stop thinking you can have a road. There's not one answer for everything. Here's a roadmap, and you're going to come up against rest stops or things along the way that you're going to need to figure out. And we're here to help. And there's a lot of Hive knowledge in that book from students and administrators that can help. But, that's why I'm saying please stay in touch, because there's going to be things happening in fall 2020 and spring 2021 that are going to be interesting. That are going to be worth writing about and adding to the book and to our online presence. So I wish I could have you a better answer, but I think we're all kind of in the dark part.
No.
How are you guys feeling at home? Is Laura, is she feeling good about this?
She's actually listening in.
Okay, well, she can tell us herself.
I think just a little nervous, because you're looking so forward, to your senior year, and that's a disappointment. Then you're looking forward to actually moving away, in the fall. Even though she's going to be a Drew, you're still looking forward to that independence, and now you don't know how that's going to look. Yeah. So aside from being caught up in all that's new and exciting, now you have this little bit of a fear factor of, social distancing, or.
Can you build a shed in that beautiful backyard for her to stay in?
I'm sorry?
A shed for her to live in the backyard, and you can tell her that's moving away?
Well, she may have to do that. We'll hook her up with the computer, and that's as good as it gets.
Exactly, Wi-Fi and no, I hear you, and I don't mean to minimize. That's very hard. It's very hard.
No, but that's the truth.
And trust me, colleges are working their butts off to make sure it's safe to go back. They want you back very badly.
Oh, I'm sure. So many different reasons, but as long as they can keep the students safe, that's the main thing.
Somebody on the call earlier, I don't know if she's still on, Mary, son's going to Cornell, and I have a very good old professor friend of mine, a mentor of mine that's at Cornell, and Cornell's a really great school, and they've got a big endowment, but he said, look, at the Ivies, we have the smallest endowment. So they're talking about layoffs at Cornell. I mean, it's like Cornell's not going to close, don't get me wrong, and Harvard's not going to close, but those schools, and certainly I know Rutgers and big schools they're going to be fine, but these schools, they need this to happen. There's an entire sector of an industry that depends on this, and I think the effects are going to be wide-reaching. But I think they're going to want to get you back as soon as possible and as safely as possible. So that's what I would say.
Well, that's another thing for parents, though. If the schools do open up and all that, a portion of that is because of the economics. They need to have those students back there. So now, as a parent, do you let them go? Do you think, Are you going to social distance? You need to be vigilant with them and see, what are they going to set in motion? What are they going to set in place to keep these children safe?
I'd be very, first of all, the good news is we're all in contact now. So you can find out what Rutgers is doing. You can find out what Fordham is doing. You can find out what Cornell is doing. And if you think Drew isn't doing enough, you might say, hey, guys, why don't you look at what they're doing here, here, and here? Because, now the University of Maine or University of Montana might have different concerns because their infection rate is way lower than it is here in the New York City area. But it's a good question, and I think this is where you want to really trust public health officials and state officials who are saying, if you go back, I think states are going to be saying, if you go back, maybe private school, because I know Liberty University tried to reopen. I could be wrong. I don't know in short, but yes, you're going to ultimately have to be the consumer here and say, this isn't safe enough. I do think if the university is smart, they don't want to get sued, and they don't want to crash and burn. So they have a vested interest in keeping it as safe as possible. I would think, I would hope. That said, obviously it's caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, I think. But
I do have a suggestion, though, for all of the parents. On Facebook, there are, if you haven't joined already, there's parent groups for every school. And I found that extremely helpful last year for my older son. And talking through, how to prepare and kind of this same conversation, but with parents who were already experienced at that specific school. And same thing for this year with Adam. It's very helpful. One of the things that they're thinking about at Seton Hall is doing a half and half. So if a class meets twice a week, half of the class will be in the classroom, the other half will be virtual, and they'll switch for the second class. So, I don't know. And if you're at a school that doesn't have singles, like, single rooms, I don't know what they're going to do with that either if they're all doubles like they are at, where he's going. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Where does he go to school?
My other guy goes to Ramapo.
Okay, yeah. That's a great question. So you're right. There's Facebook groups for classes, right? They're all talking now. So there's social media and parents as well. So there's going to be endless chatter about this. And without driving yourself crazy, staying in touch with that is important. This is way different than when we went to college, when it was like you got a letter. Your roommate is Jim McGrail, which is my roommate's name. And I didn't meet him and didn't talk to him, didn't do anything until he showed up first day of freshman year. I was like, hi. Nice to meet you. And I really said, I just hope the guy doesn't have a TV because I don't want to waste time watching. The first thing, he was asleep on the bed with the TV on when I got into the room. So it was a sobering moment. Mary asked a really good question. Is there anything you recommend for study strategies? We're going from daily classes to 2 or 3 times a week. It's a great question. And that really goes to time management, Mary, because they'll tell you, and we have whole chapters on that. And we have what we call a study budget. We actually let you download a PDF that you can then fill out with what you can say, yeah, you want to go play ultimate frisbee for a couple hours? That's great. Put it in there. But there's a formula they have, and if you're a good student, you'll get a sense of, geez Louise, I got 14 chapters I got to read by Wednesday. You got to really be really, really clear-eyed as best you can, because you might want to just go hang out and go to the pizza place with your buddies, or go out and do whatever, or go to the football game, whatever it is. So the study budget is really important. Time management is enormously important. We emphasize that a lot. But everybody, and here's the great line from one of the former college presidents who was a Jesuit priest. He's still alive, Bill Byron. He was the president of Catholic University and then University of Scranton for a while. He's in his late 80s now. And he said, the college is an equalizing force. No matter whether you're rich or poor, black or white, from wherever you're from, everybody has 24 hours in a day. Everybody. It's the great equalizer. What you do with those 24 hours, how you apportion them, makes all the difference. And so nobody can say they have more hours in a day. So it really comes down to being able to manage that. And that's a really hard thing. So, and a lot of students complain of that, because procrastination is everybody's enemy. We all do it. But there are some real skills and strategies in the book that really talk about, hey, be really clear-eyed. You can go out and goof off and hang out with your friends and have talks till midnight, but be smart. You got to get this studying in. You're paying for this. And we do another, like I said before, we do a whole breakdown of like, how much is your school costing? How much is that class hour costing you? And your parent, or more likely your parents? Get the class and study for it. Be prepared, because it's worth something. This is valuable. So it's a real maturing moment, I think, for kids. It's really like, okay, have at it. So a great question, Mary. Any other questions? Tara, no questions from you, I take it?
I just wanted to say to Ro and Marty that I just chatted you the Facebook. Did you say Drew University?
Yes.
Yeah, I just found it, and it's actually I'm sure you have as well. It's called Drew University Parents and Family Members on Facebook.
We have. Yeah,
Yeah.
we've been on it.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's excellent.
Stay in touch with that, because that's probably not moderated by Drew University. Is it a Facebook page? They probably don't moderate it, right? Do they? So my point is, parents are going to speak their mind on that, I think, right?
Yeah, people pretty much, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're going to say, man, this isn't safe. People are going to start saying that,
Right.
And trust me, there's going to be parents who are fire chiefs or health inspectors somewhere who have kids going into that class who are going to be saying, I know what good looks. I mean, there's going to be crazy people too, right? Who are going to say we're so germ phobic that they won't do anything. So that's where judgment comes in. That's what it's hard. It's hard. Are you more scared now than you were before? I hope not. Kim, are you more scared?
It's a learning curve for all of us, for the students who goes, and as you said too, it's a learning curve for the parents.
These are your first two, right? Your first one. Okay, right. So, Adam's mom has some experience. Kim, it's the first one for her.
Yes.
And is your son pretty responsible, do you think? Or are you kind of like, oh? Sometimes.
He's fine.
I shouldn't say it now. Adam will probably let him know.
Yeah.
But, well, that's a good conversation to have. We're not there. Elon's more than an hour drive away, brother.
Yes. I think 11.
It's 11 hours.
He has to know. Yeah, right.
And we are here. We love you, and we're going to do everything we can. But this is on you. And what do you want? That's why those questions in the beginning of the book about what do you want? Like, let's talk about this. Because this is really, it's not simply about just, of course you want to get a job and all those good things, but what do you want out of college? What do we value? And, these are hard conversations to have, but I think they're important.
But it's a starting point, so that's great.
Yeah. I mean, and that's where your family will take up and say, like, this is what we value, what we don't value, and what we don't want from you, or what we don't want for you. But, Adam, do you have any questions? The only student? No?
Nope.
You got it covered? This is what I mean. They got it covered. Adam, my email's there too if you need it, if anybody needs it. I've done some presentations where juniors in high school will start emailing me. I didn't want to say this in front of my mom, but can you tell me this, that, and the other? We're happy to give advice and happy to point you in the right direction. And, even if you can't buy the book or don't buy the book, please don't hesitate to email me. It's fine. I'd love to hear from you.
Is there anything else for Bill?
Thanks so much.
Well,
It was helpful. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. It was fun.
Thank you for all. And I just want to share my little corny story. One of the things I remember vividly was I used to drink Coke. I don't anymore because if you're going to waste calories, you won't drink a Coke. But it was but I used to love Coca-Cola. And I remember vividly having a memory of going. I had morning classes because I'm an early person, and I remember saying, "Oh, I want a Coke," and I was like, "I can't have a Coke. It's morning. My mother would never allow me to have a Coke." And I was like, "Wait a minute, I'm in college. I can have a Coke right now." So I went, I got a Coke, I took 2 sips, and I was like, "Oh, it's disgusting. It's 7:30 in the morning. Why am I drinking a Coke?" And the reason I say that is because I always tell my students and our alumni is, and now I don't drink Coke anymore, but I would never drink it, and I would moderate it just like my parents did. And what I'm trying to say is the fact that you're interested in your child's future, they're gonna lean on probably what you already taught them. Yes. And they're going to find that out, and they're going to say, "Oh, wow, mom was right." And maybe you won't be that conscious, but you're already doing the great work already. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Bill. Really,
that's a great point out. You guys are. I tell this to people, you're already concerned and interested. You're ahead of the game.
Right.
You know what I mean? And there's going to be issues. There's going to be challenges because there always are because it's life. But you're going to get through it. And I think the folks. I say this if you're here and concerned about this and you're thinking about it. you're many steps ahead because you're already aware of there's an issue. You're not just reacting. You're preparing.
Absolutely.
Except you, Adam. You're in trouble, pal. Now you're going to be fine. Seton Hall is great. The campus is beautiful. I was there a couple months back, man. They've done a lot on that campus. They have nice buildings. It's a great town to go to school. It's
Fun downtown too. Yeah.
yeah, no, it's a great town. I mean, really,
Yeah.
great school. So, and Drew, I was at Drew last summer. It's a beautiful place too, man. So I haven't been to Elon, and I've been to Cornell. These are all great schools. Tara, where's your little one going to?
It's going to Montclair State.
Nice campus as well. These are all
Nice campus.
places. Yeah, these are all nice campuses where you can have fun. It's a very college experience, which is great. You know.
This
So-
has been great, Bill. Thank you. We listened to it as a family.
Oh, great. Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Great being with
Take
you.
care.
Stay safe, okay?
Yeah.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.